Hey Cardfighters, Chris here from Vanguard Central, bringing you our friend Mario's budget Aquaforce deck. So we'll just start with the G zone. We have 3 Atmos. This is mainly if you want to get that early damage on your opponent, or to do mostly for a late game push after you've worn down their hand with all the restanding attacks from their signature to Aquaforce. And we have 1 Blizza, which if you have been striding a lot in the turn is going to end up being better than an Atmos. So it's a good change up, gives you some options. And then lastly we have 4 Tidal Bores, which is the trial deck stride unit, and is an on hit when you have the 3rd battle or more. You get to hit and draw a card, and then you can choose to call a card from your hand or not to your rear guard. You don't have to call a unit if you don't want to, which is good because it gives you options to call a booster, call an extra attacker over one of your units that's already attacked, or just draw a card and be happy with it. So next we'll talk about the starter is Andre. His skill is you counterblast 1, move him into the soul, and your unit gets choose a rear guard, and it gets for once per turn at the end of the battle that it attacked a Vanguard, you can restand that unit and give it +2. So it's going to be great for getting those extra attacks in, enabling some of the 4th battle or turn skills, and in general just pushing out a lot more shield from your hand. It is a generation break starter, so you have to stride before you can use that. So that's something to keep in mind. Starting with the boss unit, we have Tetra Burst Dragon. So he gets +3 if you have another unit in the middle column, so that will include his Legion mate. So he's always going to be attacking for 23, which is nice. And his Legion skill. When this unit attacks, if it's the 4th battle or more, you can counterblast 1, and it's going to get +5 in a crit. So unboosted, we're talking 28k plus a crit, which is really scary. Especially if you can boost it, then your opponent's going to have a hard time dealing with that extra crit. And the secondary grade 3 is going to be the Break Ride from Fighters Collection, Demetrius. The Break Ride skill is when you break ride over this unit, then your Vanguard gets +10,000, and if it's the 4th battle or more, when it attacks, you choose one of your opponent's units and retire it, and then you get to draw 2 cards. So this is really good as if you're being rushed. This can really let you catch up by retiring and slowing down your opponent's assault and drawing cards to help set up and help come back as well. It's also really strong because if you have Tetra Burst, which hopefully you're break riding into, then he's going to go up to 38k unboosted, and with the crit, it's going to really put some pressure on your opponent, especially if they don't have a perfect guard, which hopefully you're going to be drawing out with your Tidal Bore Dragon strides. Going into the grade 2s, we run 4 Ionis. This is an amazing card in my opinion because it's not restricted to Generation Break or Limit Break or Legion or anything, and that's a key to a really strong card in the current metagame. And skills during when the attack hits Vanguard, if it's the 3rd battle or more, then you get to draw a card. So this makes it it's a really strong pressure unit. Especially if you use it with Andre, your opponent's really forced to guard these later attacks to prevent you from getting a card. And if they do, free cards for you, no one's complaining about that. Next, we have 3 Gregorius, which is the 12k attacker for Blue Storms. There's a lot of like swapping around cards and stand triggers. Definitely going to help out to have a 12k attacker that can hit Vanguard on its own. So having the 3 of those makes it a lot more consistent, and you're not required to call your grade 3s as attackers just to have good targets for stand triggers or swap skills. Next, we have 3 Starless. This is going to be if your Vanguard is in Legion. If it's the 1st battle of this turn, Starless gets +3,000, so it becomes a 12k, and at the end of the battle you get to swap it with any one of your units. So again, that's going to set up those 4th battle attacks for getting off Tetra Burst skill, or it doesn't work with the stride because once you stride you're not in Legion, but mainly getting those extra attacks in and really pressuring your opponent. The last grade 2 we run is 2 Spyros. His skill is if it attacks a Vanguard and it's the first or second battle, then you get a counterblast 1 Blue Storm, and you get to restand him. So that's really good because it's an early game pressure unit. You can call this when your opponent's still on grade 2 and attack them, counterblast 1, attack them again, really pressure to get their cards out of their hand. As well as some of the other units in the deck are going to let you power him up, and so that's going to make some pressure even when your opponent's at grade 3. As well as, again, you know, being another activator for Tidal Bore or for Tetra Burst. Going into the grade 1s, we do 3 perfect guards and 1 quintet wall. So the reason we have this split, even though these days with all the stride going around, it's definitely very hard to guard safely with a quintet wall, it really helps that legioning setup. So if you can quintet wall early, it's going to save some damage, as well as set you up for a legion and pressuring your opponent really hard with crits. But we don't want too many because, again, as I said, they're not quite as effective as they used to be. Next we have 4 of the 10k attacker for Blue Storms. This card's really important for getting that early rush that Aquaforce really strives on. Because when you can rush them early with Aquaforce, they're either going to be at high damage or low cards in hand, which is going to set them up to be in a bad spot for all your restanding, swapping, stand triggers, and other such things. The next grade 1 is 4 Tempest Later. This card is a very uncommon card. We don't usually see this in Aquaforce decks, probably because most of them aren't Blue Storm based. And so its skill is when it's placed on rearguard, you get to choose one of your units with Blue Storm in its name and give it plus 3k. So this is basically going to turn any of your 9k grade 2s into 12k hitters. It's going to turn your 10k grade 1s into 13k, making them the ideal targets for your stands, for your swapping. And so this really helps with the consistency. Sometimes the issue with Aquaforce is you want to get those extra attacks in, but they can't hit. And using Tempest Later is going to help you power up your units so that you're always going to be able to hit even with your enabling attacks. And the last grade 1 is 2 Tempest Border. And his skill is when you're in Legion and he boosts, then you get to swap 2 of your units. So this helps you get some extra attacks in, enabling Tidal Bore maybe before you can get some. You can enable Tidal Bore while leaving a column open for triggers. You can enable Tetra Burst pretty easy. I think one of the changes that will probably come into this deck is swapping these out for stride fodders, because if you saw, the deck only has 7 grade 3s, and if you're riding one, if you're break riding, that doesn't leave a lot left to stride with. So just having a couple of stride fodders will probably help the deck a lot, and Mario has mentioned that he does want to make that change eventually. So lastly, we look at the triggers. We have 4 Malikas. I think that's her name, sorry if I got it wrong. The skill is put it into the soul and one of your units gets plus 3,000. Again, putting up your guys to make them able to hit 11k Vanguards on their own, which makes them super good targets for stand triggers and for swapping effects. And 1 Otter because it's adorable, and that makes 5 draw triggers. And next is a little odd. We have 7 stand triggers and 4 heals. So we'd have no crits in this deck. And you might be wondering why we have no crits. And the reason there's no crits in the deck is because the deck's focused on bringing those extra crits with Tetra Burst. So by providing the extra crit from Tetra Burst by itself, we don't need to really run crits in this trigger lineup because you're already pressuring, again, like I said, with Tetra Burst. So by bringing the crits with Tetra Burst, we can provide the stands to pressure our opponent even more. And 3 of these stands are the Trial Deck stand, which is Generation Break 1. At the end of the battle that these units attacked, you get to swap 2 of your rear guards and then return this guy back to the deck. So that's really important. You're going to keep your trigger count high in the deck, as well as being an enabler for multiple attacks. So for example, Maybe you have a 7k booster, you can put this guy in front. Swing boosted for 11, and then swap into one of your 12k hitters, one of your grade 3 11k attacks, and really get those extra attacks in and pressure your opponent more. I hope you liked our rundown of our friend Mario's Aquaforce budget deck profile. Definitely an interesting take on Aquaforce, and it works really well for him, so I'd suggest you go try it out. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to give us a like because it really helps out a lot. Comment down below if you have any questions or thoughts about the deck, and please subscribe for more content. Vanguard Central out.